The Weekender quilt is finished. I'm excited to break down all the tips, tricks, and techniques that I used in this quilt project. I'm TJ of TJ Wright Quilts, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. I am going to be breaking down all the elements that I chose to do in this very simple pattern that was designed by Stitched in Purple, one of my dear friends. And the pattern is called Weekender. It has lots of opportunities to expand on a very beginner-friendly design. This is a perfect pattern for somebody who wants something quick and easy to do on the weekend. You don't have to necessarily do like I did and make things complicated, but I'm going to break down all the things that I did with this very simple pattern. So this pattern has accent blocks, which you could use a larger scale print and coordinating fabrics with. I chose to use these hand-dyed fabrics from cherry wood and to do some thread sketching designs, and you can see them here. And I will get into that technique a little later in the video. For the background fabric, I used Grunge from Moda and this speckly teal colored fabric blender from Northcott. It is though these two fabrics were actually made to go with these hand dyes. I was thrilled that I was able to find something that really complemented it. The teal was used for the accents in the sashing and in the 9 patch, as you can see here. The first technique that I used to create this Weekender quilt was to do some thread sketching. I actually have a full tutorial, and I will put the link in the description below so that you can go there and see how exactly this was done. But I started by doing these blocks first. You trace on the design, and then you literally sew over the line, and you're going to be using a 12 weight pearl cotton. These are hand-dyed threads from Valdani on your top thread, going through the needle. Yes, it can be done, and it works beautifully. And it is so much fun to do. I couldn't be happier with the way that it turned out. The tutorial also, you will be able to download all the motifs that I used in this design, and you could create it for yourself in the colors that you would want to do. It is so much fun. The other thing that I did was after the quilt was constructed, I had the batting and the backing in place, I did go along and do some organic quilting around the motifs, which really made them pop. I think it just turned out smart. I couldn't be happier with it. It's just organic. I didn't really have a plan. And it's kind of nice to just do some mindless meandering around a design and actually see it come to life. Once we had constructed all the blocks and the sashing and put the whole quilt top together, then it was time to put our batting. I used an 80-20 batting, and backing, I just used a plain teal color Kona cotton for the backing. And then was the time where we all have to make that final decision of what our quilting design is going to be. And I decided that I wanted to challenge myself to do some ruler work. And I had purchased these rulers a while ago and kind of put off doing anything with them because of the learning curve with that. I'm sure you have tools that you've purchased thinking that you'd really like to try that and put it to the back burner. Well, this quilt was the quilt that I decided that I would do these half circles. And they're basically like an inch half circles. It was quite tedious, I will tell you that. It's not a beginner-friendly technique. And While some of the circles look really good, some of them are a little bit wonky, and I decided if you can't see it from a galloping horse, it's just fine. I also struggled with tensioning issues with this. Because we're using a ruler foot that's going around this acrylic ruler, it does sometimes create this peculiar tensioning issues from time to time. So it was at times frustrating, but I stayed the course and I finished it. I hate to think how many circles are actually in this quilt, but there are a lot. I finished this quilt off with binding using a big stitch technique. I just did a cross technique as far as the stitching goes, and I used again an 8-weight pearl cotton hand dyed from Valdani. I was thrilled that I had such a great color that complemented this quilt on hand, so I was able to get started on it right away. The one tip I want to give you about big stitching on the front of your quilt is that you need to initially apply your binding to the back and press it to the front in order to get the stitches. I also have a tutorial on how to do this, along with a catalog of different stitches that you could do on your binding. It just makes it a lot more fun to complete a quilt. I know that sometimes bindings are the last thing that people want to do, but they can be fun, and you can make them fun by doing a decorative stitch. I hope this project inspires you to possibly try some new techniques on your next quilt. Maybe some thread sketching, using some rulers to do some quilting, big stitch treatment on your seam binding. If you've liked what I've shown you today, I would appreciate a thumbs up if you could give me one. I always appreciate a comment. And if you're not subscribing to my channel, I hope that you will. As always, happy stitching.